Hey friends. So I had a a little experience this morning, I guess. I was sitting in meditation. I was doing the exercise that I've spoken about any number of times on this post. I got it from Madeline. She calls it performing beyond fear. And it's basically a brief kind of reflection exercise where you sit, close your eyes, and for 2 minutes we think about our musical lineage, all the teachers we've ever had, and if we are aware of the teachers that they've had, then it kind of becomes this network of of lineage, of the lineage of our own musical learning. And it's kind of incredible to do this. I mean, I find different people coming to mind each time and different elements of my own training coming to mind. So that's the first little 2 minute chunk. Then in the next 2 minutes, we think about our own basic goodness. And basic goodness is an idea, I don't know if these are Chogyam Trungpa's words or if he is drawing them from Tibetan Buddhism, which is his tradition. But the idea being, every human being has basic goodness. Beingness is basic goodness. And what I identify with in myself is just that awakening, kind of like almost childlike love of life, that childlike, oh, here's another day, here's another moment, here's another opportunity. It's a kind of open-hearted leaning into the world. So we think about our own basic goodness, and a lot of times, because we're thinking about it in a musical context, it shows up as my own relationship to music, my own practice, what the kind of source of the energy that's coming through my practice. And then that's the next 2 minutes. Last 2 minutes is we reflect on the basic goodness of our audience. In other words, of anybody we might play for, whether it's live or virtual or whatever, anybody who might be listening to us. And again, what happens to me frequently is it expands out because, at the moment we're doing the meditation, we're obviously not in front of an audience, but, sometimes it's an upcoming event, or sometimes it's just reflecting on some of my past performances and feeling and kind of almost reframing moments when I've been on stage and been perceiving the idea of being seen and being observed as somehow being a form of scrutiny or judgment, which is real easy to get into that. If we have a lot of self-judgment going on, it's easy to feel that the enhanced kind of consciousness in the room must be another form of judgment. And a lot of times that's the subconscious thing. We don't even really notice that's what we're doing. We just feel the quality of it kind of affecting and usually, distracting us or taking us kind of out. So that's the exercise. Well, I was doing that this morning, and I got to part 2, the basic, reflect on my own basic goodness, and I kind of like something in me didn't want to do it. I was like, or not didn't want to do it, but I just felt a little resistance. I was like, I had trouble connecting with my own basic goodness. And I don't even know why. I didn't have a thought about it. I just kind of felt that. But then I got to the third part, and I start trying to connect with the basic goodness of other people. I had a couple of people in mind recently who heard me play, and so I was like, oh, I'm trying to connect with their basic goodness. And I realized, wait a minute, because I resisted part 2, part 3 is actually kind of hard now. And it was almost like, because I couldn't or wouldn't connect to my own sense of basic goodness, I had real trouble. It was kind of like because it's the same energy, right? My basic goodness is not different than anyone else's basic goodness. We're not talking about competence or skill set or personality. We're talking about the underlying humanity, the underlying like human consciousness impulse that's beneath all of our layers and layers and layers of conditioning and behavior, which might be totally different for every human being. The basic goodness is universal. And because I couldn't really connect, or was resisting connecting to my own basic goodness, when it came time to do that next step of the exercise, I just felt like, oh, I missed a step here. It's like I can't feel other people's basic goodness as palpably as I usually do in this exercise, because I kind of skipped over the step of my own. And it made me register how important, how basically basic goodness and our sense of basic goodness, whether or not you have ever done this exercise or even have ever heard the words basic goodness or thought in this way about it at all, that sense of my own self and the impulse, the kind of underlying impulse of my own self, and being willing to acknowledge that, being able to acknowledge that, is the foundation of any relationship with other people. Because if I can't feel it in myself, or I resist it in myself for whatever reason, as I was doing this morning, it's like I've missed it's like I don't have the key to unlock another human being's experience. Because another human being's experience, in terms of the conditioning and the actual, like the words they're saying, the behavior they're displaying, the thoughts that they're thinking, none of that is mine. That's all their conditioning versus my conditioning. So we're more than likely to find differences there. We're more and kind of, we're not going to align. At least not exactly. We'll gravitate towards people who think like us, and we'll kind of maybe not be so attracted to people who don't think like us or whatever. That's a whole kind of like world of subconscious, psychological, emotional patterning that affects how we choose our relationships. But none of that is universal, and all of it ultimately results in distinctions between us. But basic goodness results in unity between us. Basic goodness is the substrate beneath all of that, and it's shared with literally everybody. Doesn't matter whether they think like us, doesn't matter whether they think completely opposed to us, doesn't even matter whether they like us or whether they hate us, right? Even their affinity for me has no impact on the universality of our shared basic goodness. And so that kind of like, there was like a penny drop there for me where I realized, oh, that second step of the exercise is actually a really big one, because it's not only where I connect to myself, which is obviously important. Connecting to the basic goodness of who I am and what I am is incredibly important. It's how I remind myself that I'm not my conditioning. It's how I remind myself that in the context of, an ongoing life with successes and failures and challenges and overcoming and failing again and overcoming again, and the kind of ongoing tussle of life, there's something way beyond all that. And there's a kind of light, a kind of joy and a generosity that's untouchable. It's absolutely untouchable, unshakable, unbreakable. It's infinite. It's there. And when I connect to that, then finding that and seeing that and acknowledging it, recognizing it, knowing that it's behind every other set of eyeballs that I might be looking into, becomes so much easier. It becomes obvious that that's the case. So, in other words, that connection to our own kind of infinite self as the foundation of relationship was what really showed up. And it was kind of like it happened to me very tangibly and palpably in the space of a short exercise. So the connection kind of zinged for me. So yeah, that's what showed up this morning. Nice way to kick off the week on a Monday. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.